Andy here with the Progressive Conservative Podcast, and I'm excited to bring you my very first video. Now, for the past few years, I've been contemplating putting together a podcast basically speaking to both ends of the political spectrum. You've probably heard of the narrative countless times that one side is woke and socialist and the other side is racist and fascist. And sometimes one side is accusing the other of the same thing that they're being accused of in the first place. Now, we also have heard that both sides say to one another that they're dangerous to America. With all the progress that America has made over the past quarter of a millennia, that's like 250 years, wouldn't it be foolish to say that only one side has a monopoly on the ideas? Now, I personally love traveling to a lot of rural areas because there are a lot of awesome gems that you can find in those places. But just by looking at the map, there is no secret those people vote conservative. Are we going to need a passport, us being the more urban people, to visit these more rural areas just because of our divisions? Now, my goal is to level set our country. We need to just basically simmer down these divisions so we can respect one another again. I have some experience level setting others in person. Over the past decade, I have taught over thousands of people during my Yoga in the Park events in Minneapolis. Many people have shared with me the wonderful experiences they had from that yoga class. In my podcast, I want to bring that same wonderfulness in the ideas I present. It really comes down to connecting with genuine folks who really respect one another. It seems there is a ever-growing chasm sending this wonderful connection apart. Bottom line, this is not politically correct. This is progressive conservative. Now, in the 2024 election, Democrats did win major statewide races in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Arizona, and Michigan. These four states that they had these victories in were deemed as swing states that we kept hearing about in the run-up to election. Those same states were also won by Donald Trump. These bifurcated results are confusing. Why would someone vote for a Democrat down ticket and then either abstain or vote for Donald Trump for president? I argue that the Trump campaign was successful in illustrating a strong contrast in comparison to the Kamala Harris campaign. That particular illustration plays into an ad that was aired over 30,000 times in the run-up to election. That ad depicted comments Kamala Harris made during an interview sponsored by the National Center for Transgender Equality Action Fund.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners.
The ad run by the Donald Trump campaign basically claims that Kamala was for they and them, which were the transgender prisoners, and President Trump was for you.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
Many have opined that this ad may have tilted the victory into Donald Trump's favor. In fact, Senator John Fetterman said that this ad had earworm quality and also said he was not surprised that this ad resonated. Now, keep in mind, Senator Fetterman won the state of Pennsylvania just 2 years ago, just as Donald Trump won this year. I certainly agree with Senator Fetterman's perspective. However, the why in that ad hasn't really been explained that well. Now, from a hardworking conservative's perspective, I can certainly understand why this ad would be a grievance. Prisoner, transgender, and the image of more tax dollars being funded for that gender reassignment surgery. Now, some sources put that type of surgery in upwards of $60,000 to $70,000. That's a lot more than many people pay in taxes over the course of a year. Simply, that's just expensive. Break the law and that's your reward? Now, I understand this affects a small number of people. However, the optics surrounding this are just plain poor. When a conservative says far left, I can't doubt the observation here. That ad speaks for itself. Even liberal comedian Bill Maher called this issue out in an episode during his Real Time with Bill Maher back on October 25th, 2019. Bill calls out another liberal politician, Senator Elizabeth Warren for Massachusetts, making the same type of comments.
Elizabeth Warren has not come out in favor of imprisoned serial killers voting, but she does want taxpayers to cover their sex change operations in prison.
Later in the episode, Bill Maher made mention of future Vice President and presidential candidate Kamala Harris about the use of her pronouns.
I'm not sure why Kamala Harris felt the need to start off a recent town hall by saying, "My pronouns are she, her, and hers," as opposed to Trump's, which are me, myself, and I.
To think this was 5 years ago, I think Bill Maher hit the nail on the head when calling out the biggest weakness within the Democratic Party. To many in this country, transgender prisoners demanding gender reassignment surgery and pronouns go hand in hand. I want to make this clear. If you want to be addressed a certain way, let me know. I'll respect that and address you as such. Now, even further, I understand the powerful connection that is created when you call someone by their true name. No matter who you are, that little action powerfully affirms your identity. Don't get me wrong. If you want to be called they and I accidentally call you a him, I want to get that right the next time. It's human nature to make assumptions. If I get that wrong, you certainly have the right to shame me. Now, I feel shaming someone for that is just a little bit over the top. However, we are in America and everybody has a right to free expression. But is shaming really the direction we want to go? Wouldn't just a teachable moment be a lot more powerful? After all, if you hold a grudge over that, that's only going to hurt you in the long run. Now, with 330 million people living here in America, shaming someone for not following the pronoun protocol will definitely leave a bad taste in many people's mouths. There are a lot of folks that feel that the pronoun issue is being force-fed to them, just like a lot of the other messages that we hear. Now, I feel that bad taste made that ad so effective. To me, asking for my pronouns is like asking me to provide ID for buying a 6-pack of beer. Now, can't you tell I'm not 20 anymore and it's only 6 beers? Now, if you call me a she because I don't want my pronouns asked of me when clearly, well, I mean, you're allowed to make your own assumptions. But if you really did call me a she, instead of holding a grudge about it, I would probably just joke about it. I, for one, certainly understand the struggles of the person who benefits the most from using these pronouns. But I want to be clear of the purpose of this video is not to tear them down. I want to bring some awareness and some constructive criticism to build them up. These same folks, I would unconditionally accept and respect them at my yoga class. Now, if this ad didn't have a strong messenger behind it, this ad likely would not have been that effective. Think of those drug commercials that we see quite a bit on TV. You know, like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Skyrizi. You're probably really annoyed by those ads by now, but if you fit their target market, likely you're going to ask your doctor about them, and that's the whole purpose of those ads. The clincher of what made this ad with they and them effective is when Donald Trump had his only debate with Kamala Harris. Remember when Donald Trump claimed certain immigrants were eating cats and dogs? There was certainly more to that. Now, during the debate, Donald Trump said the word they or their 231 times.
They're going in violently. They're dangerous. They're criminal. They're radical. They're eating the dogs they have. They never fired one person. They're the same people. They allowed terrorists. They can't even speak English.
While Kamala Harris only said it 10.
That they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended.
At one point during the debate, Trump said they or their 107 times before Kamala had a chance to say it. Now, the flurry of they or their were definitely directed towards Democrats and immigrants. If one of his voters missed the debate, his rallies were no different. In fact, one of his campaign rallies in Erie, Pennsylvania, Trump said the word they or their 280 times.
They're unpleasant anyway. They're crooked. They're crooked people. They're crooked people.
It seems the they and their were Trump's Trojan horse in making that ad effective. Now, certainly, I felt the eating pets comment was ridiculous. However, the overall message that Trump made during the debate was Democrats and immigrants are a problem. It's a perception that was created where Democrats lacked kitchen table priorities that matter to many Americans. Not just the immigration piece, but also from inflation and just basically the strength of our country. The Kamala Harris campaign really didn't effectively convey how they would be the strong leader to help folks affected by inflation. That perception likely painted a linear thought in many people's minds. That line drawn were Democrats and the several grievances Donald Trump made about them. For example, take the immigrants eating the pets comment. They as Democrats, they as immigrants. That ad created a trifecta when depicting they, them with transgender prisoners. That trifecta is called the rule of three. This is a term in psychology that explains how our brains process and retain information. Now, our short-term memories can only retain a certain number of points at any given moment. When those limited points are organized in a powerful way, that can sway our perception. There has been some commonly known companies that use this strategy to connect their advertising with consumers. These points elicit an emotional response to buy their product. Think of 2 points draw a line as created in the debate, drawing Democrats as they and their, and the third point drawing a shape added in with the ad. Now, once you get a shape in your mind, it is tough to unsee. Likely that is what the debate and that ad's impact had on putting a picture in someone's mind. For Kamala, that picture was not a positive one. Think of people's minds when they follow the teachings of a Father, a Son, and a Holy Spirit. Listen to Billy Graham explain this to us, likely instilling the shape in his followers' minds.
We have ice and water and vapor, three things, but they're all the same. But they take different forms. And so the Holy Spirit are like an apple. They're the seed and the core and the meat of the apple. Three things but make up one. The Holy Spirit is one of the Trinity, equal with God the Father and God the Son.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The shape that Billy Graham created is likely a positive one in many of his followers' minds. Of course, for Kamala, I feel her campaign needed to understand that concept of the rule of three much better. The Democrats have a lot to learn about messaging. I believe they, see what I did there, need to take honest feedback on their shortcomings. Now, I certainly am disappointed by the National Center for Transgender Equality Action Fund for not pushing back on Kamala's stance. Wouldn't common sense say even we don't think that is something the taxpayers should pay for? Now, I understand that was in the moment and it would be tough to push back on those type of comments, but they had 5 years to clarify their position. 5 years ago, Bill Maher was pushing back on this stance. I don't understand why the Transgender Center couldn't do the same. To give a fair perspective about providing prisoner medical care, I get there's a Supreme Court ruling from 1976 that requires prisons to provide needed medical care. A year ago, convicted police officer Derek Chauvin was badly assaulted in prison. Do we just let him lay there and die? Now, I lived in Minneapolis during the time when Chauvin's actions landed him in prison. I was upset with him and what happened afterwards. I don't think we should neglect care for him, but apples to apples, do we feel the same way about gender-affirming care? Now, I'll admit, I am not an expert on this issue. However, as a casual observer that lives in a free, expressive society, providing gender-affirming care for prisoners does not seem very right to me. Let me know if this has happened, but I am not aware of a male prisoner needed to be treated for Peyronie's disease or a female prisoner needed to be treated to have augmentation under the auspice to better affirm their gender. I think the interaction Kamala had with the transgender folks is a good start to determine why so many people are not connecting to their message. It's time for the Democrats to do some serious self-reflection. If they don't take this seriously, they will be experiencing more stinging losses. This is not politically correct. This is progressive conservative. Again, my name is Andy. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I would also appreciate a thumbs up or even a comment to let me know your thoughts. Other ways to support this channel are hitting the bell notification, subscribe, or share this video with others to get the word out. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.